Hi, I'm Yinuo from Dynamic Decision Making Lab, advised by Professor Coty Gonzalez and Fei Fang. This is a pre-recorded presentation for the 2022 International Conference on Cognitive Modeling. The paper I will be presenting is Modeling of Multi-Defender Collaboration in a Cybersecurity Scenario. It is a collaboration with Professor Kuldeep Singh and Palvi Aggarwal from the University of Texas at El Paso. As cyber threats evolve, increase, and become more sophisticated, securing our systems and networks from unauthorized access and potential exploits is one of the most difficult challenges. The threats include the use of phishing, malicious software, identity theft, device access, and bank fraud. Adversaries have been acting collectively, exchanging experience and knowledge, and launching coordinated attacks. One solution to combat this is to promote information sharing among targets and thus strengthen their cyber defense capabilities. Demonstrated in this diagram is an automated threat indicator sharing program led by CISA to enable participants to exchange cyber threat indicators across the governments and the private sectors. However, that program has made limited progress improving the overall quality of information shared as reported in 2020. And one major reason is the limited number of participants sharing threats information. Factors incentivizing or deterring the collaboration decisions among organizations are various. The efforts of the government can be seen as incentives for firms that encourage themselves to collaborate. When it comes to the firm's decision on whether to share cyber incident information, their cyber risk profile, collective action of the private sector, trust and interdependence among peers also come into play. In the case of sharing, firms get to strengthen cyber defense and lower investment cost. On the other hand, not sharing raises the risk of facing physical and intellectual property losses, but at the same time protect private information better. In this work, we focus on the interaction among the organizations making sharing decisions and frame the problem as a multiplayer prisoner's dilemma based on the cost-benefit trade-offs of information sharing. More specifically, we designed a multi-defender game of 3 defenders making sharing decisions repeatedly for 50 trials. The payoff between each pair of defenders constitute a prisoner's dilemma. The cost of sharing information with one groupmate is 15 points, while the benefit of receiving information from a groupmate is 35 points. Thus, sharing and receiving from the same person will result in 20 points, while sharing information but get nothing back, equivalent to being defected, lead to a loss of 15 points. To capture the effect of information sharing on cyber risk, the probability of each player being attacked is dependent on their points. As shown in this equation, each attack cost 30 points. In our human experiment, we explore the idea of promoting cooperation by providing players with higher levels of information. As shown in this hierarchy, more information about the opponent's action and outcome is provided to the participants in upper levels. Or human experiment compare the minimal level and the experiential level. As an example, these are the feedback tables for each condition. There is one column for each player in the group, providing details about the sharing decisions and payoffs of the protagonist players and his peers. If the player chose to share, his breach status was also included. In minimal condition, the participants were only acknowledged about the sharing decisions of their groupmates. In experiential condition, 2 extra cells about the associated outcomes were also provided. We were able to collect a total of 210 human participants, approximately 35 groups for each condition. It takes about 50 minutes to complete the experiment. Here are some major findings from human data. The hypothesis was supported. Participants in experiential condition showed higher overall cooperation rate compared to the minimal condition. As shown in figure 1, both refers to sharing with both peers in the group, and 1 refers to sharing with one of the group mates. The gap on sharing with both peers is larger. Figure 2 presents the overtime sharing rate. It can be seen that the sharing rate in experiential condition became steady in the latter stage of the experiment, compared to the continuous dropping in minimal condition. The question now is if we can explain this behavior and even make predictions. As shown in this literature review on cybersecurity information sharing, most of previous work are either technical, that is, developing decision support tools to automate secure and effective information sharing, or game theoretic, that is, developing game theoretical models that optimally balance cyber information sharing and other considerations like investment, cyber attack risk, and privacy. The cognitive process involved has not yet been investigated. Here, we adopt the approach to predict human sharing decisions by creating a cognitive model of the decision-making process at the individual level. We adopted the instance-based learning theory for the modeling of the cognitive process of human players. As a brief introduction for IBL, it is an interactive, closed-loop dynamic algorithm of decisions from experience, including reconnaissance, judgment, choice, and feedback. When making a decision, the IBL agent first fetch past experiences on selecting the provided options. The probability of fetching such experience is dependent on the frequency, latency, and noise of human memory. The agent then calculates an expected utility based on the past utilities of those fetched instances. The option with highest expected utility will be chosen. The situation state of the defender consists of 4 attributes: breach status, probability of breach, and the expectation of receiving information from each groupmate. As suggested by literature, beliefs and behavior correlate within rounds in repeated prisoner's dilemma game, and belief in one round vary with behavior in the previous round. Thus, we include expectations laws to capture the association between the expectation of receiving information from peers and the decision of whether to share information. Is approximated with the accumulated proportion of receiving information from that groupmate. Here, we assume that the participants can keep track of the interaction experience with their peers. This assumption can be relaxed by manipulating the window of proportion calculation. After receiving the actual sharing decision at that trial, the expectations laws are updated with the actual decision. For minimal condition, agents are only rewarded by their own sharing payoff and breach lost. For experiential condition, since the participants are provided with information about their opponent's decision and outcome, we assume that they would also care about the payoff of their friends in the group. Thus, IBL agents are rewarded by the weighted sum of every group member's outcome. Inspired by the notion of social value orientation, W represents the degree to which a player is willing to consider the outcome of the other player for each option when making a decision that maximizes the gains in each trial. This W is updated dynamically dependent on individual experiences that can best explain human cooperation behavior. More specifically, a player will account for the outcome of an opponent as a function of a normalized gap between expected and actual outcomes, termed as surprise. The hypothesis is that human players would care more about the peer when their relationship become more stable and expectable. The IBL model was run for 100 simulated groups of players in each of the two information conditions. Each group plays the game for 50 trials. This figure illustrates the over time proportion of sharing for the IBL model compared to human data. The model matches human behavior quite well. Agents in the experiential condition and rewarded by the weighted sum demonstrate higher proportion of cooperation. The model is also able to approximate human data when breaking down the sharing decisions to sharing with both or one of his groupmates. We note that the model seems to show a stronger preference for sharing with one, while human participants share more with both. A possible explanation is that a fraction of human participants are altruistic or are trying to build an altruistic reputation by indiscriminately sharing with both. The model's decision driven by the utility exclusively converge relatively quickly to the more rewarding options. We also analyzed the comparison between human and model in terms of sequential dependency metrics. C in the title refers to cooperation, D refers to defection. Trust means a player chooses to continue to cooperate with a groupmate who cooperated with each other in the previous round. Mistrust, in the contrary, means a player chooses to defect the group member who defected each other in the previous round. Abuse means the player get information from a groupmate in the previous round, but didn't share back. In current round, he chose to continue to exploit the sharing tendency of that groupmate. While forgiveness means a player is betrayed in previous round, but still chooses to be generous in the current round. The model fits mistrust, trust, and forgiveness reasonably well with a significant positive correlation, but exhibits approximately 25% more abuse than human players. Defect is getting increasingly rewarding as the game progresses, and it becomes more affordable to lose a cooperator. To sum up, from human experiment, a multi-defender collaboration game, we found that more information about others can help promote cooperation. Humans tend to start sharing with both players and gradually shift to sharing with one of them or stop sharing. IBL models were able to capture human performance in general, but appears to be more selfish than humans. Thanks for listening.